Hi guys, it's Tara and welcome back to Crafting with Curly Cues. Today I'm going to be creating this super sweet little autumn scene using lots of products from the Lawn Fawn Winter release that came out in August. So as you can see, I am just chock full of all kinds of good Lawn Fawn stuff here for this project. So to start, I'm going to be doing a bit of die cutting. So this is some Schoolhouse Red cardstock from Simon Says Stamp. I'm taking a couple of the Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle dies and the little tiny hearts that come in the Lawn Fawn stitched journaling card die set, and I'm just going to run that through my Big Shot, and I'm creating a little bit of a frame here because I want to frame up my little scene using this really pretty deep red color. So you can see how using those two dies that go one size right after the other creates just the absolute perfect frame for your scene. So now I'm taking the smaller of those two dies that I used, and I'm cutting out a couple pieces of this perfectly plaid paper from Lawn Fawn. This is one of the new packs. Let me grab it really quick. Hold on. Sorry, I totally made this last week and had already put this paper pad away, and I could not remember exactly what it was called for you guys. So it is the fall, that was easy enough. It was the fall perfectly plaid paper pack, and I cut out a sky background and then some of this fun kind of mustard yellow. And then I used one of the stitched hillside border dies to create kind of a little hill out of that mustard colored yellow, and that's going to be my grass for my scene later. So I have a craft card base because it's fall, and I always use craft card bases in the fall. And I'm going to take this adorable sentiment from the Thanks a Bushel stamp set. It says, I heart you a bushel and a peck. It's kind of a long sentiment, so I laid it first out on my work surface and let it just straighten itself out and then picked it up with my acrylic block. I find that's the easiest way to make sure that it's nice and straight. So you can see that I masked off the back of my card so I don't get any stamping on the back, and then I'm just going to repeatedly stamp this sentiment over and over and over in some Versamark ink and then heat emboss it with my current favorite gold embossing powder, the Antique Gold from Simon Says Stamp. So you can see the whole front of the card is covered in it, and then when I heat that up, OMG, so pretty. And this gold against the craft is just one of my absolute favorite looks, is gold heat embossing on craft cardstock. I think it's so pretty. I obviously didn't need this in the center because I'm going to be putting my scene there, but rather than try to figure out where I did and didn't need stamping, I just went ahead and stamped the whole thing. Now you can see that I obviously didn't get all of those perfectly straight. It legitimately does not matter. There's just so much going on that your eye doesn't really notice that it's not perfectly straight, so don't stress about getting all those little sentiments perfectly straight if you're creating a background like this. So for my little scene here, I wanted to deepen some of these colors a little bit, so I took some distress inks. I started with the broken china on the background, and then I decided that wasn't quite dark enough for what I was going for, so I added some faded jeans over the top, and I'm just darkening up this pattern paper. So I'll admit to you guys, this was originally supposed to be an entry for the textured lawnscaping challenge, but I didn't make the deadline because that's pretty typical me. So that's kind of why I'm doing all of my inking on top of already patterned papers, because it just adds all that extra texture, but it looks so super cute anyway. I don't even care that I missed the deadline because it's just super cute. So for the ground over that mustard yellow cardstock, I used crushed olive, and then I came in with some rusty hinge, and I think it just gave it like a haystack kind of look. I don't know. It was fall colored grass to me. So I put some more rusty hinge over the red frame just to darken that up as well. You can't really see it, but I was just kind of going crazy with my distress ink, so I wanted to distress ink everything. So I went ahead and did that. So now I'm doing my stamping. This is Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink because I'm going to be doing some Copic coloring, and I'm stamping that on my 110-pound Nina Solar White cardstock. I stamped the bushel of apples and a bunch of apples from the Thanks of Bushel stamp set, and then from the Jumping for Joy stamp set, that adorable little owl that totally sold me on the set, like as though I didn't want it anyway. The owl just pushed it 110% over the edge. And then I stamped some leaves from that Jumping for Joy stamp set also, just so I could set my scene here with this little bushel. So you can see I colored one leaf off camera and it turned out basically just really dark brown, and I did not like it. So I kind of went with this really loose, like putting a light color on and then doing a tip to tip and just brushing on a little bit of that extra color. I thought it gave it just a nice fall multicolored leaf, not perfect blended look. So that's how I went with my leaves, and I was totally just experimenting here, having a lot of fun with my Copics and just, trying out some different color combinations. I think that's been my favorite thing about making fall cards so far, is trying all the different color combinations. So here I have a giant faux pas, guys. I have to tell you, I did not realize till I sat down to edit this video that I colored like 92% of my apples out of frame. Like, I totally just blew it. So I apologize. The whole point of this coloring was supposed to be like, how am I coloring the apples and getting dimension on them and all that. Oh, just kidding. I'm just going to go ahead and color those not where you can see them at all and call it a day, I guess. So in a moment here, I'm going to cut to the apples like magically colored, and I'll show you kind of the end part of how I'm doing this process, just so you can kind of see. It's not really hard. I really stuck with the same basic colors. I actually, by the time I got to the little bushel, I switched my colors up a little bit, and I stuck with the that R89, and then I did the R29 and the R24 just for a little bit of a brighter apple look. The individual ones are a little bit darker, which you totally can't tell because I'm not on camera right now, because that would be silly to do a video and put the coloring on camera. But, nobody's perfect, right? I was filming this before work because my work schedule has changed, and so I'm trying to take advantage of all the hours of the day to try to get all my crafting in, and I think I was half asleep, seriously. It was even worse than when I stay up too late, because I'm like a night owl. I'm much better at night, but man, when I first wake up in the morning, I am like a useless blob for a good 2 hours before I actually wake up and become a human being. So yeah. And that's what happens when I try to film when I'm a useless blob, is I color off camera. So I finally realized that I was doing that and shifted my coloring around. It's still not in the middle of the frame where I would like it, but so what I did was I put down a base layer of color over all the apples with the R24, which is the lightest, and then I came in from the edges with the R29, added a little bit of the shadowing, and then I came in with the R59, added some shadowing, and then the R89 is the very, very deepest shadows. So it's basically where the apples are kind of overlapping and would create a shadow on each other. And then I just went in reverse order and went back and started blending all that out. I did a little bit of tip to tip to get some of those deeper reds to blend into those lighter reds better. But I wasn't really super concerned about this being perfect. It's kind of a cartoony looking scene, so it didn't have to be a super realistic looking apple. And I wanted a deep red to match that schoolhouse red that I have for my card base there. So I colored the barrel and the owl off camera on purpose, just because the coloring was going on forever and ever. At the time, I of course didn't realize that I had not included any of the apple coloring because it was out of frame. But I was trying not to bore you guys to death with the coloring, because the barrel and the owl are just some pretty basic brown. But I promise I have lots of other Copic coloring tutorials with critters and such. If you guys want to see something akin to that, you can definitely check some of those out. So moving right along and getting this card put together, I went ahead and used the sentiment from the Jumping for Joy stamp set. I used the So Thankful that fit perfectly on my little hill there. And then I'm adding the tag That We're Friends on the inside of the card. And I'm heat embossing both the sentiments in the same antique gold embossing powder. I just can't get enough of it. I seriously want to coat my life in antique gold embossing powder right now. It's really just such a pretty color. And that So Thankful fit so perfectly on that little piece that I was just this is just meant to be. It's what I'm going to do. So I used my bone folder to score that card. Since it had all that stamping on it, it really needed to be extra scored. And now I'm going to start building the card. So first I use my little quickie glue pen to try and adhere this frame. You're going to see later that I kind of go back and put a stronger adhesive on, just because it probably would have worked fine if all that gold embossing hadn't been on the front, but you just needed something a little bit stronger to grip that embossing powder there. So I'm just going to use my ATG gun to put some adhesive on the back of my little sky panel. I'm going to stick that right in the middle. So I'm doing inlaid die cutting basically. Everything is flat. I'm just sticking it all on there together. And I'm not popping anything off the card until I get to the little elements that I'm putting on there. So that's my cute little scene. So here's where I come back in, and I'm actually going to bust out my Tombow Mono Multi Glue and put just a nice thin line of that all around the frame, and then go ahead and adhere that. This is a good strong adhesive. It worked perfectly fine. I just think that little quickie glue pen is fabulous for little quick things, but it just wasn't quite wasn't quite cutting it for this gold embossing, having everything stick on there. So now I'm just kind of figuring out where I want stuff on my scene here. And I'm just going to start building a little scene. And I don't end up using all these apples and leaves. I cut way too many of them out when I did my fussy cutting, but it doesn't matter. I can totally use them on a different fall card, so I was happy to have some extras. As you can see, I cut the stems off the apples, and I thought about stamping the apples first before I put this down, but I honestly don't think that you can really notice, but I didn't want to take the time to fussy cut around all those little tiny stems, so I just cut them right off there and figured when they harvested, they accidentally plucked too hard, and that part stayed on the tree. That's my justification for that there. So I popped the bushel of apples up, and then I'm going to pop the little owl up standing right on top of that bushel there. I think he's so cute. And then I was originally going to have him holding like one of the apples with the bite taken out, but instead I took one of those little hearts. Remember at the beginning when we did all the die cutting and I had those little tiny hearts that I cut out? I decided to go ahead and put one of those in his hand. Like he found a heart amongst this bushel of apples. I just thought that was super sweet. So I'm going to decorate the inside as well. I have a few of these elements left over, so why not? When you can make the inside tie-in, that's great. I try really hard to do the inside of all my cards, but I probably only hit about 50% of them, if that. So I was pretty proud of myself for getting this, taken care of on the inside there. Added one of those sweet little hearts as well. And then I just decided I have to use one of these apples with the little bite taken out of it because it's so cute. So I just popped one of those up right in front of that little bucket there, and I think it just completed the scene perfectly. I love how some of that stuff is tucked behind the bushel and some of it is up in front. I think it just looks super cute. Put a little black glaze pen on the little owl's eyes just to add some dimension and shine there. And then of course I got to put some white gel detail on all my little apples. So I basically just tried to make sure that I stayed on the same side of each apple because that makes logical sense to me. But other than that, I don't really stress too much about where my light is and all that jazz. And then I have to add sparkle because you guys know me. So this is my Spectrum Noir sparkle overlay pen, and I just put some sparkle on top of all the leaves, including the little leaves on the apples, and then on top of both of those little hearts. And then to finish things up, I'm going to grab my glossy accents, and I'm going to put some glossy accents on his cute little beak, and then on top of that little heart that he's holding in his hand, just to make it pop and make it extra shiny. And then this card is finished, folks. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I really, really love the way that this card sparkles and shines in the light, and it's just like really super fall time. I just love it. And it's Lawn Fawn. Like, how can you go wrong with adorable Lawn Fawn fall images? It's perfection. So if you guys are interested in any of the supplies that I used, you can always find those listed below, and I have them over at my blog, so you can check that out there also. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and hit subscribe and leave me a comment. I love chatting with you guys. And don't forget to check out the description box below to join me on Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram. Thanks, guys. Bye.